Welcome back to Scare D Pants. Today we're going over some of the most interesting, horrifying Reddit stories. Let's jump into it. My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 2 decades later, I realized what he actually saw. I was about 7 years old, my brother about 10. It was well past our bedtimes when our mom woke up off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was often just us three at the house for weeks at a time. Up the stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left, you put in the middle of a hallway. Taking another left down that hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bedroom. At either end of the hallway are window doors we always kept locked and rarely used. The door on my end led to a balcony overlooking our front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened to our back porch. The house kind of leans into a small hill. My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper and they just couldn't help flushing while the door was wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back toward the bathroom. I'm going to try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try to scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendencies towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember the time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once had to call the cops. We're a gun owner family in a quiet rural WV neighborhood, etc. I asked her what she was talking about, and she looked equally surprised as if she had just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night I woke up hearing noises outside my window, and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom." She went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running, and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall white male wearing a striped shirt, jeans, short dark hair, something like that. They said it matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. Turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago, in my mid-20s, that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing the inside of our home. Now, our first story is a very fascinating and true story to be told. I found that one pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and jump into this one as well, because it is one that is maybe a little more supernatural seeming. Let's get into it. I came across an incredibly creepy family a while back. Okay, I never really post anything on Reddit, mostly just reading, so please excuse me if I do or say anything that's not a common courtesy. In around 2018 to 19, I, a 25 female, at the time was 18-19, living in Nebraska, where I grew up. I lived in the largest city in NE, but it was still essentially surrounded by corn and wheat fields. The city was expanding, so rich folks started building huge houses with gigantic properties on the edge of town as things proceeded to grow. All of that being said, I had a good friend whose parents' house was one of those big ones right on the blurring lines between the fields of the city, and my friends and I were constantly hanging out at his place because it was fun. They had tons of property to ride 4x4s on, a hot tub, a huge living room for us to watch sports, and having reality TV binge sessions, etc. Plus, his parents were super cool and we could drink out there as long as we stayed at the house. It was a ton of fun, even though I was/am quite scared of the dark. So I would just not go outside after a certain time because there was little lighting and the nearest neighbor was about a mile away. I always felt a weird energy driving to/from his place, even if it was at night especially, but never had anything happen until one night. The drive out there was a long, winding two-way road that had thick trees on both sides, and you passed one of the city's largest cemeteries on the way. Barely any lighting, of course, besides the street lamps every once in a while, and very little traffic. It's all inherently a bit creepy, and I'll have to admit having spent through those section... It's all inherently a bit creepy, and I'll admit to having sped through the section of road many times to get through it as quickly as possible. This specific night was perfect spring weather, so I was driving with my window down listening to music. It was around 10 p.m. I was coming around one of the curves in the road when I had to essentially slam my brakes on. Right in front of me in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards away, was what looked like a family. Again, picture a completely pitch black road with thick forest on both sides, and my only headlight to show was right in front of me. Well, this was a family of 3 or 4, tall, slim woman, an average height, man, child, short hair but couldn't tell the gender based on the clothing and couldn't see their face, maybe around 8 years old, and the mother was pushing a freaking stroller. Their clothes looked normal, not tattered, but not nice. They also were carrying any kind of light source, meaning before I arrived behind them in my car, they'd been walking in the pitch black. They were all facing away from me, walking completely silently in the middle of the street in the same direction I was heading. I turned my music down to hear if they were speaking, had music playing, etc. They didn't. The hairs on my arms immediately stood up. I came to a stop in the road behind them, obviously, and just sat there for a moment to let them move. They seemed to be completely unaffected by me and didn't even turn their heads slightly. Nor did they attempt to move out of my way. I literally thought I was going insane or that I must have been dreaming. It was so surreal. Before I really had time to fully process and register what I was seeing and how truly strange it was, they all, at the same time, stopped walking and very slowly turned to face my car. This scared the absolute shit out of me. I honestly didn't even give myself enough time to look at their faces as they turned. I immediately threw my car in reverse, sent it backwards for probably a full 20 seconds before flipping a U-turn, nearly running myself off the road and booking it in the other direction. The only thing that I remember noticing is that the stroller looked to be completely empty. This was the part that sticks in my mind the most. I've never felt terror like that in my life. I checked my rearview mirror probably 1,000 times before getting to a main road and never saw a glimpse of them. Ever again. I tried asking my friend and his family about it, only to essentially feel like I was insane because of the way they looked at me. Every time I tell this story, I get one of 3 reactions. They immediately think I'm cuckoo, think I'm lying, or have had something sort of similar happen to them. I don't really care if no one believes me. Honestly, it was and still is the creepiest thing to ever happen to me. I think about it all the time. It was either some weird-ass family trying to scare the shit out of someone, a distraction for an attempted robbery, assault, etc., or maybe it was something more sinister. I'm going to tell myself for probably the rest of my life that it was the first option. Now, this story is one that had a little bit more of a supernatural flair, of course, and it's one that I definitely believe that the viewer saw something that night, whether it was truly ghosts or just a bunch of crazy people. In our next story, we've got a police officer talking about one of their experiences, so let's jump into it. I'm a police officer in southern U.S. in a suburban department of about 100 sworn officers. I work in a college town, been on about 10 years now, made sergeant 4 years ago, but at the same time of the story, I was 2 years on, working night shift patrol. I've been lucky that not a lot has affected me, mentally anyway, during my career. I don't have kids, that's how it gets you usually. You can build all the mental walls you want, but when you get emotional connection with your kids and see something happening to your kids, the walls mean nothing. Anyway, this one stuck with me, still makes my hair stand on end, especially when it rains. It was September, just after midnight. I get put on a call of shots fired. Now, normally these calls turn out to be either fireworks or perhaps a car backfiring, but mostly fireworks. So unless we get multiple calls on it, or a confirmed gunman, or someone confirmed wounded, we just send one unit. That night, I was that unit. The shots fired was reported around a college football stadium. This was during football season, so there was a bunch of really big white tents set up all around the parking lot for tailgating. I notified dispatch that I was on scene and started rolling through the parking lots, casting my spotlight here and there. It was raining pretty heavily and very hard to see. However, about halfway through the lots, my spotlight illuminated the silhouette of a man sitting in a folding chair under one of those big tents. I pulled closer and lit him up and notified dispatch that I was out with one in the parking lot. His back was to me. He appeared to be hunched forward, as if his elbows were on his knees and his head leaning forward. I walked towards him and started calling out to him. Can't remember exactly what I said, but something like, "Hey man, you okay? You heard anything strange? Could you come talk to me?" He didn't move, and he didn't answer. As I drew closer, I lit him up with my flashlight. I then noticed the outline of a shotgun on the pavement next to him. Combined with him not answering and the nature of that call, it was enough for me to break leather and have dispatch hold the channel. I kept calling to him as I approached, asking him to show me his hands, etc. 30 feet. 20 feet. "Come on, show me your hands!" 10 feet. My handgun, Glock Model 22, has a Streamlight TLR-1 light on it, so I had him lit. 6 feet. "Come on, I'm serious." Under the tent with him. 5 feet. "Hey man, what are you doing?" 4 feet. "All right, this isn't funny." I close in on him. Come around to the front of him. Shotgun suicides are difficult. Often if they put the barrel under their chin, the blast from the barrel's going to blow the gun out from under their chin before the shot ever even hits them. There was a guy in my hometown that succeeded in a shotgun suicide only because he did it in front of a pond. Put the barrel under his chin, pulled the trigger. Only managed to blow his face off. Coroner said he probably ran around screaming through the hole that used to be his mouth before he drowned in that pond. However, this guy succeeded. Blew his head clean off. You do this job long enough, you notice funny little details. His elbows were indeed resting on his knees. It was as though he blew his head off, set the shotgun on the ground next to him, and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees to think about what he'd done. About that time, I noticed that even though I was under the tent with him, I felt like it was still raining. And then I looked up. This story ended with a little bit more of a sickening and sad ending, obviously. Feeling like it was raining on him in the tent would have been parts of the man's head on the top of the tent. But thank you very much for watching, my friends. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Scared D Pants, and I'll see you in the next video.